In the chaotic streets of mid-19th century New York, one man stood out as both a hero to some and a menace to others. Bill the Butcher Poole, with his ruthless temper and unparalleled ferocity, carved a reputation that made him both feared and revered. His life of brutality and political intrigue even inspired the chilling antagonist in Martin Scorsese's Gangs of New York. Yet, like many who live by the sword, his violent ways ultimately led to his death at just 33 years old. New York City in the mid-1800s was a rough and riotous place, where the rule of law often gave way to the rule of fists. It was a city teeming with opportunity and chaos, where a knife-wielding pugilist could rise to fame among both the public and the press. While times have changed, one might argue that the spirit of those gritty streets still lingers beneath the city's polished exterior. Bill Poole's story begins on July 24, 1821, in northern New Jersey. Born the son of a butcher, his early life was one of hard work and simple living. When Poole was just 10, his family moved to New York City, where he followed in his father's footsteps, eventually taking over the family butcher shop in Lower Manhattan's Washington Market. By the 1850s, Poole was a family man living with his wife and young son, Charles, in a modest brick home on Christopher Street near the Hudson River. Physically, Poole was an imposing figure. Standing 6 feet tall and weighing over 200 pounds, he was well-built, quick on his feet, and carried himself with a bold demeanor. His striking appearance, complete with a thick mustache, added to his larger-than-life persona. However, beneath the polished exterior was a tempestuous man with a penchant for confrontation. The New York Times once described him as polite when calm but dangerously haughty and volatile when provoked. He was a fighter, ready for action at any sign of insult, the paper noted, capturing the fiery spirit that earned him both admirers and enemies. Poole's reputation as a fighter was unmatched. Known for his rough and tumble style, he was infamous for taking fights to brutal extremes. Eye-gouging, scratching, biting, no tactic was off-limits in his quest to dominate his opponents. As a butcher by trade, he was equally skilled with knives, a talent that would later contribute to his fearsome reputation on the streets of Manhattan. But Poole wasn't just a brawler. He was also a leader. He rose to prominence as a head figure of the Bowery Boys, a nativist gang notorious for their staunch anti-immigrant, anti-Catholic views. The Bowery Boys aligned themselves with the Know-Nothing political movement, a xenophobic faction that believed Irish immigrants were undermining America's Protestant values and democratic ideals. In the volatile streets of antebellum New York, this movement often turned violent, with gangs like the Bowery Boys clashing against Irish Catholic groups such as the Dead Rabbits. Among Poole's most notable enemies was John Old Smoke Morrissey, an Irish-born bare-knuckle boxer and political enforcer. Morrissey represented everything Poole despised, an immigrant and a key figure in the Tammany Hall political machine, which championed pro-immigrant policies and was dominated by Irish Americans. Despite being a decade younger, Morrissey was as arrogant and bold as Poole, and their rivalry was destined to turn violent. The animosity between the two finally erupted in July 1854 when they encountered each other at the City Hotel. Morrissey, confident in his abilities, challenged Poole. "You dare not fight me for $100. Name your place and time." Never one to back down, Poole agreed, setting the fight for the next morning at the Amos Street docks, now West 10th Street. By dawn, a crowd had gathered at the docks, eager for the spectacle. Poole arrived in his rowboat, exuding confidence, while spectators doubted Morrissey would even show. But by 6:30 a.m., Morrissey appeared, ready to face his rival. The two circled each other briefly before Morrissey threw the first punch. Poole ducked, grabbed him by the waist, and threw him to the ground. What followed was a display of Poole's notorious fighting style. Pinning Morrissey to the ground, he scratched, bit, and gouged relentlessly. The fight ended with Morrissey's face bloodied and disfigured, his right eye so damaged that the New York Times reported he was scarce recognized by his friends. Humiliated, Morrissey admitted defeat and was whisked away to recover, while Poole celebrated with a toast before rowing back to shore. The fight's aftermath was as contentious as the brawl itself. Some claimed Poole's victory was unfair, alleging his supporters interfered, while others argued he triumphed single-handedly. The truth remains murky, but one fact is certain. The fight cemented Poole's reputation as a brutal and fearless fighter. For Poole, victory meant celebration. While Morrissey retreated to nurse his wounds and plan his revenge, Poole and his allies headed to Coney Island to revel in their triumph, unaware of the dark twists their rivalry would soon take. On the night of February 25, 1855, the bitter feud between Bill the Butcher Poole and John Morrissey reached its fateful climax. It was around 10 p.m. when Morrissey, seated in the back room of Stanwix Hall, a saloon frequented by political partisans in what is now Soho, heard that his nemesis, Poole, had just entered. Tension filled the air as Morrissey confronted Poole, hurling curses and challenging him once again. Accounts of what happened next vary, but all agree that violence was imminent. Some say Morrissey pulled a pistol and snapped it 3 times at Poole's head, only for it to misfire. Others claim both men drew their weapons in a tense standoff, daring the other to pull the trigger. Before the situation could escalate further, the saloon owners called the authorities, and the 2 men were taken to separate police stations. Remarkably, neither was charged, and both were soon released. While Poole returned to Stanwix Hall with his friends, Morrissey's whereabouts remained unclear. But the night was far from over. Around midnight, 6 of Morrissey's men entered Stanwix Hall. Among them were Louis Baker, James Turner, and Patrick Powdean McLaughlin, each harboring personal grudges against Poole, who had humiliated or beaten them in the past. Fueled by revenge and outnumbering Poole, they were ready for blood. Powdean McLaughlin taunted Poole, trying to provoke a fight. Despite being spat on multiple times and called a black-muzzled bastard, Poole refused to engage, knowing the odds were stacked against him. But the restraint didn't last long. "Let's sail into him anyhow," James Turner shouted. Tossing aside his cloak, he revealed a Colt revolver, leveling it at Poole. In the chaos, Turner's first shot misfired, shattering his own arm. Undeterred, he fired again, hitting Poole in the leg and shoulder. As Poole staggered toward the door, Louis Baker intercepted him. "I guess I'll take you anyhow," Baker sneered before shooting Poole in the chest. For 11 agonizing days, Poole clung to life. Though the bullet didn't pierce his heart, it lodged in the sac surrounding it, leaving him in unbearable pain. On March 8, 1855, Bill the Butcher Poole succumbed to his injuries. His final words, spoken with pride, were, "Goodbye, boys. I die a true American." Poole's funeral, held on March 11, 1855, drew thousands of supporters who lined the streets to pay their respects. He was laid to rest at Greenwood Cemetery in Brooklyn, his procession a stark reminder of his polarizing legacy. For the nativist movement, Poole was a martyr, a symbol of their xenophobic cause. Not everyone viewed his death with reverence. The New York Herald remarked with biting irony, "Public honors on a most magnificent scale were paid to the memory of a pugilist, a man whose past life has in it much to condemn and very little to commend." A manhunt for Poole's killers soon followed, but justice proved elusive. Despite their arrests, the trials ended in hung juries, with no convictions. Louis Baker and his accomplices walked free, while Poole's legacy lived on in infamy. Today, William Poole is immortalized not just in the annals of history, but also through the captivating portrayal of Daniel Day-Lewis in Martin Scorsese's Gangs of New York. While the character of Bill the Butcher Cutting takes creative liberties, the essence of the real Poole, his charisma, ferocity, and nativist ideology, remains intact. Though Poole's life was cut short at just 33, he ensured that his name would echo through generations. Love him or hate him, his story continues to serve as a stark reflection of America's turbulent past, a reminder of how violence and prejudice can shape a man's legacy. William Poole's story is one of power, violence, and a fractured society struggling to define itself. But what do we learn from such a figure? Are we destined to repeat the divisions and hostilities of the past? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to explore more fascinating and complex stories from history. Join us as we uncover the truths that shape the world we live in today.